But why can't Paul hear me?
Okay.
Paul, do you hear me now?
Okay. Anything?
I can hear him.
What's going on?
Okay, we're hearing Paul.
All right.
He doesn't hear you.
I'm hearing you, Paul.
So he's supposed to start. When you changed him
Not
from here
getting
to
any
here,
sound.
he went blank.
Okay, 13 people.
Lost both of you.
Everybody hearing?
We can hear you. Right, that you can hear.
You can hear
him.
me. Okay.
Can you hear me now, Paul?
I can't hear you now.
The bandwidth is good.
Okay, I'm not hearing Errol. I'm not seeing Errol. Ty, are you still there? Okay.
Microphone off. Paul, do you hear me now?
Hey, Carl. All right. I don't know what's happening for me. I'm assuming you can hear me. I can't hear or see Errol. Okay. Well, I can't just start talking. I'll assume, let me know if Errol is ready to jump on, and I'll shut up. But I'll talk for a few minutes now. And then, obviously, I'll just introduce Errol.
You got to
get me on. The group is growing, which is great and fantastic. Obviously, helping with Errol's legacy, which is the big thing, obviously, from Errol's point of view. He's at that point in his life where he wants to make a real impact, change the world one entrepreneur at a time, and obviously leave an outstanding legacy. I am both honored, privileged, and pleased to say that I'm part of that legacy. I'm one of the people that he has worked on, kicked butt for, changed the way I think, made a real difference to my business and my life. So that's all cool. Oh, I will shut up then if everyone's talking at once. I can't hear Errol, so let me know who's doing the talking. Okay. All right, I'll assume that's addressed to me, Ty, so I'll continue talking. So anyway, so the group's growing, and from Errol's point of view, we're still in beta, which means we are still, if you like, wanting to understand more about you guys in the sense of understanding your goals, your desires, and the main challenges that you're facing. So as Errol has been talking to you individually, then of course his brain has been capturing the patterns. So what are the biggest problems, the most common problems that everyone's facing? What are the common challenges everybody's going through? And of course, that's what's allowing him, as we move forward, to develop his syllabus, or I don't know what's the plural of syllabus? Is it syllabi? I have no idea. But anyway, there's going to be 3 of these things. So one for going from 0 to kind of getting started. And then secondly, from getting started, covering your basic outgoings, covering your current standard of life. And then the second part being, okay, can you grow that income to create the lifestyle you want? And then beyond that, how far do you want to scale? How big a business do you want it to be? What kind of impact you want to have on the world if your business is there to share a message, or, kind of how national or international, where do you want to get it? So in terms of scaling, obviously, Errol has covered all 3 of those things. So he's gone from nothing. He's got to a point where, he's covering his basic bills. He's then obviously gone beyond that to creating a lifestyle that most people only dream of. And then from a business perspective, obviously, he's multiple times built businesses that have surpassed the $100 million a year mark, and as well, a number of businesses that have surpassed the $1 billion a year mark. So he's in an extraordinary position to be able to design those syllabus. But it was really only talking to all of you individually that's allowed him to understand the challenges that you're facing and really what he needs to put across and how he needs to put it across to make sure that you understand it and, more importantly, can apply it. And that's where we're at. So as I say, the group is growing. We haven't hit we're looking at 100 people as the initial phase 1. And at that point, we will have filled the beta test, and we'll then obviously from that collate all the results and make any modifications as we start to write the syllabus. So to help us with that, we're not doing, like, my big thing is Facebook advertising. I turn advertising into profit. That's how I build my business. But at this point with this, that's not what we're doing. We are looking at it purely from you're the people that are in it. You're the people that are getting the benefit of it. So our belief is that you're the people who best know who else would benefit from this as well. So if you're in a position where you've got friends who are looking to start a business, or you've got friends who you hang out with who are already in business, but either have hit a plateau or are looking to grow beyond where they are, or have just made a decision that they're more ambitious than they originally thought they were. And I would suggest maybe if you could introduce this to them and say, come and take a look at this. If they become a member, there is a financial incentive for you. You get $100 every time somebody signs up. That's great. But I think if we go from where we are, and if each person maybe recommended one other person who then joined the group, then we'd, one, fill the whole data test. And secondly, I think it would be a fantastic group of people because you've already got yourself, you've got people that you know in there. And I think as a community, that would be a superb community for us to kind of share Errol's wisdom and, more importantly, help you implement it. So bear that in mind. I would suggest think about it as we progress over the next month. So if you meet anybody, I was in London a couple of weeks ago. A friend of mine invited me to he runs a hot desk business, which is a huge industry in the UK, and I'm pretty sure probably huge around the world as well. But he runs a hot desk business. So he's got a couple of buildings in London, and I'd ran an event in Bristol near where I live in the UK. And then he'd rung me up and said, do you want to come and do one in London so I can give you a room? So I organized a small event in London and went and did this. And what was interesting was when I got there, there's kind of like, people had their own offices. They could rent a little office for themselves. But the main hot desk area was like a real campus environment. So there was, coffee and all that kind of stuff available. But people were really just gathering around what you might consider one large desk or a large boardroom. And people were sitting around it. And I started chatting to a few of them. And they were very different businesses. But because they were all together talking, obviously there was an exchange of ideas. There was also that community aspect of motivation. So they could kind of, I guess, what's the word, get energized by each other or feed off each other's energy if they were feeling a little bit down to kind of boost them back up again. And I think what's great about what we're doing here is if we have that same culture, we can inject that same culture, even though we're working online, then it would help massively in terms of driving you guys forward and getting you to where you want to be. I hope that makes sense. Ty is, I'm kind of thinking I should stop talking now, otherwise I'll just go on forever. So I think maybe, is Errol ready to jump on? Can you give me a yay or a nay?
I'm ready, but he can continue going if he's got more.
Okay, fantastic. All right, so in that case, I'm going to obviously move across and let Errol take over. He's going to be talking about dream stealers tonight and how to obviously protect yourself from them. Big thing. You will have noticed, if you haven't already noticed so far in your life, that the more ambitious you become, you find that it's not so much that you deliberately change your friends, it's just that they naturally change as your goals change. So as you start to aspire into bigger things, and sometimes some of the people that you end up not deliberately leaving behind may feel left behind. Sometimes they can be not always the nicest people. They don't always say things which necessarily sound like they're coming from a place of love. Let's put it that way. All right, so I'll move across. I'll shut up and I'll let Errol take over. Errol, can you hear me? I can't hear you.
I can hear you very well, Paul.
So Errol, if you're sat at home, I think everybody should kind of in sequence do a little bit of a Mexican wave to say, yay, Errol. So here he is. I'll hand over to Errol. Thanks, Ty.
Ladies and gentlemen out there, thank you so much for being here today. But first, I'd like you to go ahead and tell Ty whether you can hear me or not. So get some links coming in. Paul can hear me now. Okay, that's great. Definitely a challenge for me. Yeah, Errol. Okay, thank you so much, Daniel. It was a challenge for me, Daniel. Anything that has to do with technology is a challenge to me. I've gotten to where I can open my computer myself and plug everything in, but beyond that, I'm still a rookie. So the funny thing is all the businesses that I have built have never been internet based. Towards the end of the businesses, and today we've used the internet, and we've certainly used technology in my hedge funds and the trading that we do. I'm not involved in that, so I don't get the firsthand teaching and training. Paul covered some points that are very important points here, and really critical points for your input, and will definitely impact you and eventually the world, because this group that we're creating, and I'd like to add it, Paul, it's a community that we're creating, is a safe environment. And it's a safe environment where you can say anything and not be criticized. As long as you're not being negative, as long as you're not putting somebody down, and as long as it's not against the law, everything is possible to share. As a matter of fact, what I've been doing is I've been finding the three areas of entrepreneurialism really came from this group and from the input that you gave us. And I'd like to share that before I start talking about dream stealers. Startup or transitioning to entrepreneurialism. I have never heard anybody have a course on that. Yet many of us, probably 50% of us in the group, are close to transitioning. Then there's others in the group that have been in business 14, 15, 16 years, and in a few even more. And their syllabus is, the second syllabus is more lifestyle. In other words, when you start building a business, you start becoming independent, what are you doing it for? You're doing it for lifestyle, aren't you? You're doing it to create security for your family. You're doing it to create enjoyment, a good life, be able to take care of your kids, and be able to do what you want to do with your life. And lifestyle can be developed to any level. And you're still an entrepreneur, because the big misnomer about entrepreneurialism is that we're all millionaires. And it's not true. What we are is we're independent people. We're entrepreneurial people that we take care of ourselves, and we create economy. And the economy that we create is exactly what the economy requires of the world. Not just where I live or where you live, but the world needs this. Most governments are broke, or they're raising taxes through the roof to be able to support whatever they have to support. Take entrepreneurs out of that equation, and we become contributors to a government, don't we? Isn't that interesting? And that is different. So when you create lifestyle as an entrepreneur, you might require people to work for you. Now you're hiring. Now you're creating economy again by hiring people. I hired as many as 15,000 people. That's a small town. And when you start creating those kind of jobs, you're creating economy. Then you start talking about what level of entrepreneurialism do you want to live at? And the funny thing is, as you drive down the street, you look at the shops, and if it's not a corporate-owned facility, it's owned by an entrepreneur. And that person is making their living or their lifestyle out of that specific area, or maybe they have more locations, whatever. The next level is the level where you actually want to scale it and you want to make it big. And we all have that, but there really are steps that you take. Here is an interesting factor. You don't have to make all the mistakes yourself. One of the reasons for our community, when I talked about posting little wins and how you got them is so that you share with other people that might be having the same problems. And you share with them what's happened to you, and they can grow through that problem and not having to make that mistake. And it's already happening. As our community is building, it's starting to network. And I can imagine how big this is going to become when we pull the cork out and we start creating it. Now, I don't know if anybody would disagree with me that our educational system, from grade school all the way through college now, is antiquated. Students don't come out with the necessary equipped with the necessary information to take care of themselves, to provide or produce for their economy. Now, 10% is ambitious and doesn't need anything. They would find what they need. But the other 90% of us are going to need some help. And that's why we're developing these 3 syllabuses, so that you can grow at, and this is what I talk to the students, you can grow at your level. You can grow at your speed, at your pace. And what I'm here to do is to help you. And then what we want to do is create an educational program. This syllabus then could be taught. Some of you that want to be in the motivational industry might become the teachers. And we'll create a certification for it, so you can be a certified teacher of our syllabus. And then you can go to all the community and teach. And people that want a different teacher in there can bring you in, put in a crowd, and you get to share the proceeds. And we will be creating jobs and economy. The other thing we've done is we created that travel club. And the travel club has really worked well because it's creating economy. And the majority of people now book their travel on the internet. And we have an algorithm that allows you to book it on the internet and book it at cost. Save money every single time you book. We are so confident in it, we give a guarantee that if you find a better price, buy it, and we'll give you 110% of the savings that you got. And now, in other words, we have people out there policing the market to make sure we're giving you the best price. The last thing is, if you don't save your membership, which is economical, if you don't save your membership at the end of a year, you get the next year free. Now, it's a program that has been running for over 8 years. We just bought marketing rights and are doing very well with it and enjoy it. And we want to put in about 2 million people between this year and next. So wanting 2 million new customers, we need some help. And some of you that don't have a business can utilize that business to help create cash flow. Now, for those of you who have worked with me, you know that I'm a stickler about that. And I talk about cash flow because that's what keeps you in business. That's what keeps you alive. I've had businesses that weren't profitable in the beginning, but they had cash flow, which allowed me the freedom to be able to find the formula that worked. Now I want to tell you how much I've enjoyed this, because I'm dealing right with the baseline entrepreneurs, and I talk to them as if I own their business. So when I talk to you, tell me what you own. I want to own it with you. And then I can give suggestions and ideas that might be able to assist you in moving your business along tremendously. And sometimes I get so excited about it, I can't wait to talk to that person. I can't wait to share the information and the ideas. Now, I don't expect you to have the same vision I have. And some people have thought, wow, Errol, that's really out there. But the important thing is that it works. And that you buy back the most valuable thing you have, your time. And only entrepreneurs can do that. You can't do that working in a job because they tell you what hours you need to work, or you have to hit deadlines, and you might have to put tremendous hours in, but only get paid your regular pay. Entrepreneurialism allows you independence, and it allows you to get done things in lesser time and still get paid more. I get paid more today for being passive than I made 25 years ago when I was working. And it allows me the freedom to be able to do a program like this. We lose money if we lose money, it's okay. And we ask you to fill it up at 100. Because 100, and we have people that come and go, and maybe they don't get what they need, or maybe they don't see what they need. Or maybe they ran into my subject of today, a dream stealer. And dream stealing is out there. Let's face it, our society is negative based. I couldn't believe the horror of the elections in the United States last year. Hillary and Clinton and Donald Trump were name calling, for God's sake. They were calling each other dirty names and tricksters and this and that. And imagine they're spending hundreds of millions of dollars campaigning for a job that pays $200,000. Now, Donald's finding out that being a businessman in politics is a whole different game. He has his great ideas, but the other people have to approve his ideas. Politics is a very limited space for entrepreneurs. But governments are starting to turn and say, wait a minute, our small businesses, we need to give them a break. Because when they crop up, when you have an idea and you turn it into a business, you become independent and supportive of government and not unsupported. So let's take again a look at the educational system. Would you come out of high school and be able to be an entrepreneur? Would you come out of high school with the information to be able to allow you to support yourself? Let's say you can't go on. You can't go to college. You don't have the funds. You don't have the resources. You're not smart enough. Would you, leaving high school, have the ability to be able to take care of yourself? And the answer is no. And it's been no right across the boards. People have said that from the beginning as I started questioning, and I've questioned thousands of people. Then I would ask the second thing, are we in a positive society or a negative society? Well, the media, first of all, loves negative. Do they not? I mean, they've got a log line, if it bleeds, it leads. You know, they loved a bombing. They love a shooting. They love some crazy guy jumping off a roof. And when you look at the news, is it positive or negative? So where can you find a positive environment? Go look at your friends and just sit and listen to conversations and find out if that conversation, analyze it for a week. What percentage of those conversations were negative and what percentages were positive? I think you might be surprised. If your family has not been entrepreneurial, my family was not. As a matter of fact, my father, when I wanted to do what my uncles were doing. I had one uncle that had a bakery, and another uncle that had a auto mechanic shop, and and another uncle that owned a taxi company. And I asked my dad, why can't our family be like them? Why can't, they live in a nice house. We go over for dinner and they serve nice food and dessert. And, when you want to have a glass of liquor, Dad, they've got good stuff. Why can't we live like that? They got nicer cars than we have. Nice clothes their kids are wearing.
Okay, looks like Errol dropped out. I can't hear you, Ty, but hopefully we'll get him back on in the next few seconds. All right, so we seem to be having some technical challenges with just getting Errol back in so we can carry on talking. So in the meantime, we haven't got any of that kind of music stuff that you play in lifts, so we can't play that for you for your entertainment or your enjoyment. I'm sure you'd probably rather stick a fork in your eye to listen to that stuff anyway. So we'll just kind of hopefully get things sorted out. So any questions, if you want to start just throwing some questions in about anything either covered this evening or just generally around your business, if I can either answer them now, then I'll do that. Oh, Errol's left the room. All right, so Errol should be coming back in. I can see. Okay, we'll see now. Have I dealt with my own dreams? Oh, there we go. I'm seeing Errol.
I'm back. Can you hear me now,
You are
Paul?
back. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, I'm going to shut
Okay.
up again and I'll let you take over.
The beautiful thing, Paul, is this is being recorded. So we'll put it up on YouTube quickly, right, Ty? We'll put it up on YouTube, and you'll get to see the whole thing in its entirety. Paul, you've experienced just about everything I talked about in your entrepreneurial career, have you not?
Yes, totally.
And you're still experiencing some things that are helping you move forward with strength and with vision.
Yeah, I would say the answer is in that what you said there. The vision is the bit that really drives me forward. But having said that, I mean, I guess that internal vision of where I ultimately want to be is a massive driver. And then, of course, having access to be able to talk to you and tap into your even bigger vision is a driver again. So it's like stacking all of these things on top of each other. But it is interesting. I mean, not just go on. Sorry.
And the point that the reason I'm questioning you is the point is that if it is you still finds their way off track. And we've had some great 4 o'clock in the morning conversations about where you are that have been just tremendous and very educational to me. Where you said, "Oh my God, the light just went on."
Yeah.
Errol, I gotta get back to my planning.
Yes.
And lazy plan is better than no plan at all. A succinct plan that you execute will generate better results. The better the plan, the better results. But the more working at the plan, and it all stems down to desire. If your goals and desire are stronger than the adversity that you will face, and you will face adversity. Paul, you've faced tremendous life, have you not?
Yes, very much so. And a lot of it of my own making, as you've pointed out. But yes, I've faced a lot of adversity.
I can't tell you how many times I've shot myself in the foot. The only thing I'm grateful for is that I was using blanks, because all my toes would be gone by now. Because I've made so many mistakes. And what our group is doing is hopefully making fewer mistakes. So I imagine there's some questions. Are there questions that we have? Ty? Are there questions that we have that we need to answer? So if there are questions, go ahead and give them to Ty, and I can help to create them. You know, Yvette, I got to tell you something. You're one of the people that I was thinking about when I was starting to do the first entrepreneurial syllabus, because you really, and here you have so much talent, and you're in the middle of not knowing how to put that talent out. And we're going to get there. And you're going to put that talent out because you've already decided that a job isn't the way to go. But you know what I talked to you about, and this is what I was talking about, where I thought I might be overstepping my bounds by asking people what they earn and if they're paying their bills or not. Can you help me with the questions, Ty?
Yeah, there's a question about this question asked by Carl, and he said, "How have you dealt with your own dream killers?"
You say that again?
How have you dealt with your own dream killers?
How have I dealt with my own dream stealers? Very interesting, because Carl, it happened in my own family. You know, my dad taught me a job in security, and I had to start shutting it off. And I've got to tell you something, at times they won. Remember this, we shared, nothing begins until something's sold. And either they're selling you on you can't, or you're selling yourself on you can. Because I don't need to sell them anything. I just need to do it myself. And when somebody told me that I couldn't, Carl, or that I would be a failure, or that I would lose all my money, that gave me drive. That gave me drive. And you know what I started doing? I started changing the people that I hung out with. And I started hanging out with people that were like-minded, people that had businesses. And even if they had businesses and they were successful, if they were a negative person, I tried to learn what I could and moved on from them. I have a lot of acquaintances, but very few friends. Until you create that mastermind. And again, Carl, this goes back to Napoleon Hill. He says about building the mastermind. And if you've read his book, you know that he built a fantasy mastermind he actually had meetings with, run his ideas through them. And I have done the same. So I become a part of your mastermind. Every one of you that is in the group. Every month I want to hear from you, and I want to educate you so that you don't make mistakes, or we're going to sit and we're going to do what we did with Joe. And all we did is we let our imaginations go wild. And, you know, Joe's going to post the truck that he's got. For those of you that don't know, Joe, he's a chef, and he's decided he wanted to dedicate himself to helping people lifestyle. And he gave us one recipe, it was phenomenal. And I've asked him if he would post a recipe a week or a month or something, because we're hungry for it. And it was really good information. So Joe and I he talked about, you know, Errol, I'd like to teach people how to grow their own spices. And then show them how to use the spices that they grow. And all of a sudden, think about that. There are other products out there that do that, but that could be a profit center for Joe. And then the fact that he's got a vehicle, you know, he's got a food wagon file. Why can't we do parties, cater healthy parties? So a high school birthday, and they serve tasty, healthy food. And he could promote it through health food stores and through grocery stores. We're just started talking about those kind of things. And all of a sudden, the possibilities were endless. But it's hard when you share those ideas with other people and they say that won't work. And half the time, they don't know what they're talking about. But they'll take that dream away from you. Carl, in the end of the day, I became very callous. And I became very dogmatic about what I wanted. And it overcame me. I stopped reading the newspaper. I very seldom watched the news. I watched more news last year during the election because it was so bloody entertaining. I mean, I've never seen presidential candidates go at each other like that before. You know, you British, they have Marquess of Queensberry rules, and there's certain things that you can bring up and certain things you can't. But, you know, Donald Trump doesn't have a filter. And eventually Hillary had to come back. That is incredible, Daniel. And, you know, what you're saying, you can feel what's happening to you. Post it. Share it with the group. Share it with other people. I'm assuming there are going to be other people that are going to be so interested in this. And we will grow. I'm telling you.
Can you hear me? While we try and get Errol back in, am I coming through more clearly? Or not at all? Yeah, okay, cool. All right, in answer to the question about my dream stealers, initially, I mean, when I started out, I'm from a very working class background. So if you've ever seen any of the terraced houses in the UK, that's the kind of street I grew up on. And so when I first left school, my mum was my first dream stealer simply because she had no idea what an entrepreneur was. Her whole family had always gone out and got a job working for someone else. So from her perspective, obviously from a place of concern, she thought that if I was going to try and build my own business, then obviously it wasn't going to work. People like us didn't do that sort of thing. So she was very concerned. So every time I saw her, her response to me was always, "When are you going to get a proper job?" And in fairness, she was like that for at least 15 years. So she's only recently changed. Oh, it looks like Errol's back actually. So cool.
So why don't you finish the story, Paul? It's good.
Oh, okay. All right. So anyway, so my mum was the first one. And then friends of mine, because I've had 3 jobs in my life and I've been fired 3 times. So after I've been fired the 3rd time, from my point of view, it was like, well, I'm obviously meant to do something on my own because clearly I'm not designed to work for somebody else. But I had a group of friends who were all still employed by my last employer. And they were good friends. I actually saw them recently. I hadn't seen them for about 20 years. I saw them recently. And they were telling me now that at that point, when I said what I was about to do, they were all a bit like, yeah, that's never going to last. It's never going to work. He'll be back again with his kind of tail between his legs at some point. But of course, I never was. So, but yeah, you know, I think some of the dream stealing, it isn't people coming at it from a, we don't want you to be successful. I think some of it is oftentimes driven by this desire. They don't want to see you get hurt, or they don't want to see you fail. And I think that drives a lot of it. But at the same time, you'll meet other people who think you're money driven, who think you're all sorts of things, and you're not necessarily a nice person because you want to go out and make money, or you want to go out and do something that most people don't do.
Yep. I've been tagged that many times, Paul. And you know, for instance, when I talk to somebody about say prudence in spending, and they look at me like care. You know, and I tell them if I adopted the attitude that you have now, I wouldn't have what I have. You know, and a lot of times people look at you because you've achieved and look at you in a negative form. I don't know if it's jealousy or deserve it, what it is, but people don't like to see other people rise above them. I don't know why that is, Paul. You know, when I played football, I encouraged my fellow players to play better than I did. And we did. We raised the level of consciousness. We won. But guess what it always takes? And this is true in every walk of life, leadership. So why don't you ask yourself this question? Have I been a leader or have I been a follower? Do I just jump in the boat and go downstream and let it take me where I want it to take me? Or do I steer the boat? Do I have a rudder? And I find my way to what I want. I find myself on the island that I want to be on. And I take charge of my own life. And that's taking responsibility. And that's the process of becoming an entrepreneur. They talk about risk makes you an entrepreneur, but you drive down the freeway at 70 miles an hour, 3 feet away from another car, and the guy that's driving the car, you don't know if he's just had a argument with his wife or is over the legal alcohol limit. That's a much bigger risk than being an entrepreneur. And if you have the opportunity to have a little control in your life, doesn't that make a lot of sense? So every month we're going to have this webinar. I apologize for the technical difficulties that we incurred. Ty's new at it, but he'll get it straightened out by next month. I also want to apologize for not being able to come on last week when I had emergency eye surgery. I had a bleeding vessel in my eye, and I got it cauterized by lasers. So I very much for the wishes, and the doctors did a very good job. I can see, and I want to just tell you how much I appreciate you being here. But we need to build for the next webinar because we still have spots left in our group, and then we want to learn 100 and some stories. I think next time we come on, I'd like to get a story. And Carl, if you're still listening, I sure would like to have you share your story, because when we started last October, I just remember you sitting on your backside and doing absolutely nothing. And you were kind of like paralyzed, like a deer in the headlights. Do you remember that? You had, I got this business I can go into, but I don't know about it. And then I got this business I can go into, but I'm not really tickled about that. But then I've got this over here, and you have just come on like gangbusters. And the economic floodgate has opened up to you, has it not? And you've been very responsible in creating your entrepreneurial path. And you've been very, very helpful to our group. And I wanted to acknowledge and also unfortunate. I don't know. Does everybody see Carl's post? Unfortunately, I do remember how I used to be. But you know what, Carl? Why don't you share that story with the group? Because there's a lot of people that might be right now where you were and do not know that there is a way out. And you finally made a decision with yourself. You were sick and tired of being sick and tired. And to yourself, and my brother, you haven't looked back. So be a part of the community, post, ask questions, we'll get them answered. Look for Ty's login on the next website and the next webinar that we're going to do, and he'll give you some dates, and please build for those dates. You can invite part of our group to listen, and Paul or myself or Carl will share with them why they should be part of our group. Thank you very much for being here tonight. That's Errol Abramson signing off. Paul, thank you very much.
No problem. Always a pleasure.